Hi there everyone, I've been working on a few videos simultaneously, so you're still getting the next two parts to the Disney Sing-Along retrospective, but I finished up this one first. Without further ado, Creepy Animatronics. If you've been around my channel or any of my Tumblr blogs, you might be aware that I love animatronics. It's hard to explain why, but there's something really magical about creating a mechanical figure and giving it a personality, breathing life into it, letting it become its own character. There's definitely an art to animatronics, but like all art, there's some good, and there's some not as good. I'm both fascinated and amused by unintentional or accidental nightmare fuel, something that was meant to be fun, whimsical, or inoffensive, but ends up being freaky instead. And let's be real, animatronics do admittedly often fall into this category, so it's time to do a countdown of some scary robots. But first, a few rules and disclaimers. First off, fear is, of course, subjective. These are my own opinions, and if you don't agree, you're free to leave me a comment, or 2 or 5, explaining why I am wrong and you are right. Secondly, I originally posted this series on my Unintentional Nightmare Fuel blog a year ago. This is a more polished version, with a few changes in entries and rankings. And thirdly, these are unintentionally scary animatronics. There are plenty of legitimately frightening Halloween figures and haunted house displays out there that are truly disturbing, but they're not going on the list. And finally, if you could refrain from commenting about Five Nights at Freddy's, I'd appreciate that. I have nothing against the games. In fact, I like the games and the characters quite a bit, and I think it's a nice way to get younger folks into animatronics. I just don't really like it when they sometimes clog up legitimate discussions on the art of robotic engineering with Photoshop pictures of Ralph DeWolf as a pirate fox. So, if we could keep those kinds of comments to a minimum, I would really appreciate that. Okay, all that is out of the way, so let's start with number 10, the E.T. Adventure Aliens. I have not had the pleasure of riding Universal Studios' E.T. Adventure Dark Ride, but it looks very fun, if not somewhat derivative of Disney's output. Most of the ride has guests escaping the walkie-talkie wielding government agents and flying through space to E.T.'s homeworld, the Green Planet. It's only once they arrive on the planet that things get really weird. You see, E.T.'s friends all live on the Green Planet, and if you thought E.T. himself was somewhat creepy, you haven't seen anything yet. His friends are, well, they've got the alien part down very well. E.T. might be off-putting, but you can at least wrap your head around him somewhat, since he's got a humanoid figure. These aliens are just something else, man. The whole Green Planet sequence is meant to be whimsical, but it feels more akin to a fever dream, complete with some trippy John Williams remixes. It's a little much, but it certainly doesn't stop me from wanting to visit this attraction someday. Number 9, the Portrait Bots. Now we're getting to the meat of things. Chuck E. Cheese is probably one of the most iconic animatronic characters out there, even if, horror of horrors, the restaurants are gradually phasing out his robotic form. While most of us are familiar with Chuck and Friends standing at the stage entertaining guests, when he first appeared in Pizza Time Theater in 1977, the Big Cheese and his Pizza Time players had a different setup entirely. They were actually hanging in picture frames over the guests. This stage design was known as the Portrait Show, and it was pretty unique. The fact that they surrounded the room meant that guests had better views of at least one character. These characters all looking pretty rough around the edges didn't help much, though. Also complicating things was the issue that the restaurants didn't all follow the same character models early on, so the portrait bots, depending on the store, all looked slightly different from each other. The basic gist, though, was the same. Chuck E. Cheese himself often looked especially surly or hungover, with a grouchy personality to match. Ironically, the two least creepy animatronics got the boot early on. The cute-looking Helen Henny, who was modeled after singer Helen Reddy, had a temporary spot as a guest star, before being moved into a different room and getting a substantially creepy redesign. The other one was Krusty the Cat, who looked comparatively harmless to the others, but was replaced after a year by the more sinister-looking Mr. Munch. While Helen eventually rejoined the core group of band members, Krusty faded into obscurity. The designs changed for the Pizza Time players over the years, but nothing as interesting or novel as the Portrait Bots arrangement was ever attempted again. Sadly, many of the Portrait Bots were destroyed. A few of them were displayed at the Chuck E. Cheese's headquarters for some time, but were unfortunately damaged beyond repair in a flood. Today, the only known surviving Portrait Bots are a single Chuck E. Cheese and a Krusty the Cat prototype figure. We can only hope that more will surface. Number 8, Family Album. Here's another Chuck E. Cheese group, the obscure Family Album Band. When Pizza Time Theater experienced financial issues in the late 1980s, they turned to some outside sources for animatronics. Elnicky Enterprises produced a trio called the Family Album for the restaurant, which, according to the Showbiz Pizza wiki, which I am trusting on this one, were temporarily installed at 5 known Pizza Time locations. The names of the 3 members differed from location to location, apparently chosen in local contests, but the only names we know of are from the group that played at Danvers, Massachusetts. They were Nadine, Randy, and TJ. Aside from their uncanny valley looks, the lanky bodies and huge eyes are standouts. Their biggest sin? They were just kind of boring. The song covers are decent, but the in-between dialogue sounds very unrehearsed and uninteresting. I almost wonder if some of the dialogue was ever done live, given the rambling nature. If anyone knows more details on this elusive group, please let me know in the comments. Number 7, Pasquale. Wow, 3 Chuck E. Cheese animatronics in a row. I'm getting into a rut here. I've been pretty open for a while about how Pasquale used to scare me, including in my Nightmare Fuel Tumblr and my Rock-afire Odyssey video, but to sum things up, I legitimately feared as a child that Pasquale was lurking in the play place, hoping to use myself or other unsuspecting children as his secret ingredient. But why Pasquale? Why not the sharp-toothed Mr. Munch? Well, maybe because Pasquale was the only one who felt the most out of place, and the most at home in the Uncanny Valley. Pasquale is the token human of the gang, since he's supposed to be running the kitchen in addition to performing with the band. In fact, the first Pasquale animatronic was positioned over the kitchen and would announce when guests' pizzas were ready. The demand for pizzas was so high, however, in a place called Pizza Time Theater, no kidding, and the pizza was churned out so fast and frequently that this feature was almost immediately dropped. I assume he's human because you wouldn't want an animal preparing your food. I don't know, there was just something that put me off about him as a kid, partially because of his almost human appearance, and also his loud operatic voice. I mean, I enjoy Super Mario games a lot, but Mario never loomed over me when I was 6 years old, and he's nowhere near as creepy as this. Unless it's that one oddball typing game.
I'ma bet you can't do this. Whee!
I guess what I'm saying is, Pasquale is a dedicated worker, both putting out pizzas regularly and singing with Munch's make-believe band. I fear and admire him, but mostly fear. Number 6, Uncle Clunk. Well, we've just covered 3 Chuck E. Cheese robots, so it's only fair to cover someone from Showbiz Pizza. Uncle Clunk is something of an enigma, in the what exactly were they trying to accomplish here sense. This is going to be a long entry, but I feel his story should be told, since he could have been pretty cool, if he were better designed and wasn't stifled by executive decisions. Creative Engineering, the people behind the Rock-afire Explosion characters, introduced a new character in 1983, a talk show host who was a bit too offbeat for his own good. Clunk was a technical marvel at the time, with the ability to pick up items placed next to him like a telephone or a banana. Quite frankly, he was nearly on par with what Disney was doing over at Epcot, which is no small feat. The big problem was his design. He was very bizarre, and it almost felt like the guys finished designing him, putting him together, and then they took a step back and said, wait, was he supposed to look this weird? Clunk's show was called The Uncle Clunk Abomination, and it seemed to be an afterthought after realizing just how strange he turned out. The initial show tapes were recorded by the Rock-afire's instrumentalist Jeff Howell and Bert Wilson, who also voiced Fats the Gorilla. Howell played Clunk, and Bert supplied the supporting characters. The 2 show tapes they put together are incredibly silly and fun, with a lot of playing around and generally not caring about how polished things sounded, which actually made things rather charming.
Welcome, folks, to the Uncle Clunk Abomination. We're really gonna have a good time with a sensation. Well, the name is Uncle Clunk, and you're really gonna have a good time. And it don't even matter if you put too many words in a line, just as long as it rhymes.
Showbiz Pizza's corporate folks, however, were not as pleased with the surreal show tapes, and brought their own in-house actor, who is yet to be identified, and writers to produce more quote-unquote professional-sounding tapes. The result really does live up to its abomination status.
He's the funniest robot science ever made.
Hello, you're on the air with Uncle Clunk. Oh, I get it. You're doing your impression of a telephone ringing. What are you, some kind of nut? I'd say you were more some kind of fruit, actually. I'm beautiful, but you still have appeal.
The amazing Uncle Clunk, only at Showbiz.
Guess I'm too smart for the house.
Gone was the charm of Jeff and Bert's show, replaced by a series of soulless jokes told by someone doing a bad Goofy impression. This is the version of Clunk that was shipped to the restaurants, and the audience reaction was understandably underwhelming. Not giving up, Creative Engineering tried 2 other tactics. One was Country Clunk, where the character was given a cowboy hat and voiced by a new actor, Sean Fernandez. In this appearance, Clunk sang some country songs with the main band members. At Christmas, Clunk's animatronic was refitted as Santa Claus, in what was a pretty nice show tape. Clunk's story doesn't quite end there, though. When Chuck E. Cheese's and Showbiz Pizza merged, some leftover Clunk animatronics were shipped out to the franchise's game rooms. One exhibit was called Orwell, a robot you control. Guests could actually press buttons to manipulate a Clunk figure, who had some of his cosmetics removed. Personally, I think that sounds really cool. The other Clunk refit was less impressive. Before Cartoon Network unleashed Uncle Grandpa on the world, we were given Uncle Pappy, a version of Clunk who gave kids sing-song advice on money managing, safety, and manners. Clunk was definitely a missed opportunity. I think one issue, in addition to his appearance, was how he ended up getting managed with his alien presence on the stage. The Rock-afire characters worked best as a group, and they rarely interacted with Clunk at all. In a subtle way, it made him seem unwelcome and didn't allow real character growth, no doubt complicated by outside sources writing most of the Clunk material. The Uncle Clunk saga came to a rather sad end, but hey, he made number 6 in this list of creepy animatronics, so small victory? Okay, well, I think this is a good stopping point. Come back soon for part 2, where we finish up this countdown.
Uncle Clunk's a